a good analogy. We live in a world with multiple voices, and those voices compete with our sensibilities and our logic, and we're never going to get away from that. In our gospel story today, we hear Pontius Pilate speaking in a voice of the world, trying to figure out, who are you, Jesus? What have you done wrong? And I do not be the one who wants to be blamed for your demise. And so Pilate is having a logistical voice conversation. Jesus is answering back in a spiritual voice. He's very slippery answering Pilate's questions. He often questions Pilate back with other questions. But you know, it is this dual competition that exists for whose voice that we hear. On the way into church today, I had a good illustration that kind of made me think about the world view versus our view. I noticed everything was a bit blurry this morning, and I got into church and it was still blurry. I thought because it was cloudy and dreary, my vision was impaired a little bit or hazy or something. Well, when I got into church, I realized my glasses were filthy. So I washed them, cleaned them, and dried them and put them on, and once again, I had a restored, better vision. I don't know what it is in your life that causes that spiritual blur for you. But all of us experience this. All of us live in a world where our own understanding and vision becomes impaired or difficult just a bit. And it happens based on the world we live in and the circumstances we find ourselves in. Sometimes our vision is blurred by anger or rage. You know, you can't quite see straight when you're very upset or hurt. It impacts the way we see and experience the world around us. Sometimes our vision is impaired by the tears that can't seem to quit coming from our heart or our head, draining out our eyes. Maybe it's a recent death. Maybe it's sadness over a bad circumstance or what someone has said or done. Or perhaps just a missed date or an appointment. But our eyes become blurred from the tears that we shed because of the pain we experience and feel in a broken world and humanity. And every so often, our eyes need to be blotted, our glasses need to be cleared, and we need to be restored to a clear vision of what it is we're looking off to a distance to see. Because you can't see into the distance with the dirtiness of your glasses or the blurriness of your tears. Today is a day of affirmation as we celebrate Christ is the King. And in the end, all things will be under his kingdom. We are even reminded in the midst of today, as Jesus is having dialogue with Pilate, my kingdom is not of this world. My kingdom is not here. If it were, things would be different. But as it is, Jesus explains, my kingdom is to come. Jesus had the opportunity to change his trajectory to the cross, and yet Jesus went to the cross. Jesus was not going to make it easy for the world or for Pilate. Jesus just said, this is not my kingdom. And then proceeded to the cross where his great news was delivered. The news was he was crucified to experience the pain of humanity. Christ did not avoid the things that cause us pain. Christ experienced pain to the greatest degree through the crucifixion. But then after 3 days, Christ rose from the dead, giving us a truth. And the truth is that death is not the end. That in this moment, things are not always what they seem. There is always reason to look forward and to know that in the end, we have a king whose kingdom will establish perfect peace and perfect tranquility. In the midst of Paris bombings, in the midst of the hotel being attacked in Mali, in the midst of world turmoil going on, we have to understand that this present moment is not God's moment. This present kingdom is not God's kingdom. Last week we read in the scriptures, there will be wars and rumors of wars. And this is yet the beginning of birth pangs of things to come. And so we need not be fooled by the present moment. What we are invited to do is to blot our eyes, to clear our vision, to wipe our glasses, and look forward to the promise of Christ the King. In a sense, we get to revision what it is we think about. It's sometimes difficult to revision things if we're thinking of the present moment. It's sometimes difficult to revision and refocus if all we believe is that in this moment, this is what it is. You know, I went hunting a week ago today, and I was blessed to harvest the biggest deer I ever harvested, an 8-point buck. And so I was just going to hunt the one day, Joshua and I think after I got that first deer, Josh said, well, maybe I could miss school Monday and go out. I said, that's not a problem, as he was encouraged and excited to hunt a second day. And so we went out the second day and we traded blinds. And as he sat where I was and I sat where he was, I filled my second tag. And so suddenly at 8:25 in the morning, I found myself in a position I had never been in before. I was in the woods and I could no longer shoot. That has never happened to me. And so I had to revision, what was I doing in the woods? I was enjoying nature. I was praying. I was sending texts to people. I was thinking about many other things. I was hoping for Josh. But I had to rethink and revision what was the purpose of being there, because the purpose isn't always about harvest. Yes, that's the great desire and hope for all hunters, but it's not the only reason. To cap it off and make the point even better, we hunted again all day yesterday. No taking off for lunch. In the woods in the morning, stay there till dark, Josh and I. And on the way home, Joshua said, you know what? I really appreciate your going out, giving me a chance to be out here. He said, truthfully, if it was me, I probably wouldn't be out hunting with you right now. And I thought in that moment, there was the bigger reason to go hunt with my son when I had no possible opportunity to shoot a deer again. He will never forget me sitting in the woods multiple days for him. That's revisioning. That's thinking about something that is beyond what affects me immediately. That may not speak necessarily a word of comfort or hope to someone who is struggling in the midst of a difficult situation. But I do know, oftentimes, if we are able to step outside of our own immediate self and definitions and look to something bigger and beyond us, it affects things bigger and beyond us. You know, we hope that when we disappoint someone, there'll be another day and they'll understand and they'll know it was just a mistake. We hope that in the midst of our own struggles and depression, that there'll be a bitter and better day coming where our strength will return. Sometimes when we affirm that Christ is the King, we are affirming that it is not all about the here, the now, and the present. It's about the promise of the future and that better things will come. And they come by faith. They come by us taking the moments to clean our glasses, to blot our eyes, and to gain a vision ahead again that reminds us Christ is our King. He is the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end, and He is present in the midst of all difficult things. I close with this simple story and illustration. The other night at the hospital, I was talking with two nurses, and one of them telling me her husband is not a believer. And one day her husband asked her, "Where was your God? Where was this Jesus when my niece was killed in an automobile accident?" She said, "What would you say to him? How can I explain to him this answer?" And I said, my answer would have been simple. Jesus was right there in the car with her. Jesus suffered with her, felt her pain, died with her, and then brought her to a new life immediately from her pain and her death. The reason I say that and believe that is because when Jesus was questioned by Pilate and had the opportunity to find a way out, Jesus clearly said, "This is not my kingdom," and headed to the cross, where He experienced the pain, the suffering, and the result of the sinful humanity of the world on that cross. But it was through His resurrection, and it is through the promise that His kingdom will reign forever. That is our hope. That is our assurance. That is our vision we are asked to look at when we clean our glasses and we blot our eyes. Today I ask you to remember Christ is our King as we celebrate it this day. Amen. I invite you to rise as we sing our sermon hymn.